What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how I was able to find 2 properties by accident, and I'm making $10,000 a month passively without doing Airbnb or VRBO. So make sure you stay tuned, watch the whole episode, because at the end we are going to be talking about what exact platform that we use to find the property. So how do we find the first property? We sent out an SMS campaign. And when we sent it out, there was somebody that replied and said, hey, I have a mobile home. They were asking for $400,000. Obviously, the mobile home was only worth about $200,000, including the land. But she, however, said that her husband had another property if I would be interested, of course. Right, one of the most valuable $1 million questions that you guys can ask when you're sending out campaigns or when you're on the phone is asking, do you have any other properties that you would like to sell? So many times I ask that one question and they have another property, and that ends up being the property that we end up buying. Back to the messages. She sent me a message that her husband was selling a property in Irving, Texas. So I replied, of course, send me the address. I'd like to look at it. She sent me her husband's information. We made an appointment, drove out to the property. And as we drove out to the property, I was like, man, this is definitely a fixer-upper. It's been vacant for like 2 years. It needs really everything. It needs HVAC, roof, foundation, plumbing, everything. But we were able to work out a number that worked out for everybody, right? And the funny story, when the brothers were actually meeting, they almost got in a fist fight as we're actually signing the contract. So that's just kind of some of the experiences you guys will have as investors, that there's a lot of family dynamics when you go out there, a lot of, emotions go into a property when they inherit it. So they inherited the property, had been vacant for a couple of years, worked out a number, and we're able to purchase the property. I think the final price on the first one was $165,000. It was a little over half an acre on the property, so it was a big lot, and it was actually a little bit bigger than the surrounding houses. So it was a nice house, but it definitely needed a lot of work. So my first initial thought is, I'm gonna go in here, rehab the property completely, and then just put it on the retail market, just flip it like we always do, right? Flip it, or maybe keep it as a regular rental, right? So once we finished the property, we're like, wow, this is a really nice property. And then we said, you know what, this is really nice because it's close to the airport. So there's a lot of people that are always looking for short-term rentals around the DFW airport because, for businesses, for medical, there's a medical building, a hospital nearby. So there's a lot of different things that people use these short-term rentals, right? But I didn't really think much of it. So what I did is I just put it on the market to rent. I think I put it on the market to rent for like $1,800 to $2,000 a month, right? I started receiving people that wanted to, lease the property. I showed it to one person that lived down the street. They liked it, but they wanted to think about it. And then I received a very interesting email. I received an email from somebody that said, hey, I'm with so-and-so company. I'd like to see if you're open to a short-term rental. Would you be open to a 3 or 4 month short-term lease? And I was like, well, I'm not sure. Maybe depending on the price. So I said, you know what, if I'm going to do a 3 or 4 month lease, I obviously have to get a lot more than I'm getting on a regular lease. So I said, you know what, let me think about it. I'll send you an email. So I thought about it. I talked to my wife and I said, hey, what do you think? Maybe we should do a short-term rental. We can get a lot more money and we can do it and kind of see what the short-term rental market is. Really kind of like doing an Airbnb, kind of dipping your toe in the water, but without having to fully commit, right? So we said, we'll do it if you're able to pay $3,400 a month, right? And to us, that would seem like a lot of money, right? I mean, asking for $2,000 a month on the regular market to really a traditional family that's going to lease it for a year or 2 years, and we asked for $3,400, right? Not furnished, just $3,400. And guess what they said? Of course, just send me a list of any other fees. So I sent them a cleaning fee. I needed a deposit. And of course, just like any lease, you're going to do a lease with the tenant, and they're also going to do a background check and maybe a credit check as well. So what the situation was, this person was actually going through a remodel in their homestead. What happened is her bathroom somehow caught on fire, right? So her bathroom caught on fire and she needed some place to stay and did not want to stay in a hotel for 3, 5, or 6 months, right? So I said, absolutely. This will work out. She lived in the neighborhood around the corner. She looked at the property and said, this is a beautiful house. It'll absolutely work for what I'm looking to do. We'll go ahead and sign all the paperwork. So we signed all the paperwork and leased it out for $3,400 a month. And keep in mind that the normal market rent for that particular house at that time was about $2,000 a month. So we were really happy because we were going to get $3,400. And when we got our first check, I was surprised because we got a little, I would say over $10,000, because we got the first month, we got a deposit, we got cleaning fees, we got pet fees, we got a couple of other fees associated, and we were really happy. We were like, wow, we're getting all our money. And the company seemed very professional. I looked them up because I said, hey, I want to make sure I'm not getting into any scam. I talked to a couple of friends and they're like, yeah, this happens. Insurance companies do this all the time, right? Everybody has a situation where, you have a huge plumbing issue, a huge foundation issue, and the insurance company have to put you in a temporary housing, whether it's 3 months or 6 months. And guess who's typically paying for that? The insurance company, right? So the insurance company pays for the time that you're needing your temporary housing. So we were very happy and said, you know what? We don't really have to worry about really the money because the insurance has already allocated funds to make sure that we're getting paid. And on top of that, the difference between going with something like this versus a Airbnb is that we don't have to constantly, every 3 or 4 days, every time somebody moves out, worry about sending out the cleaning crew, making sure that we have to stock items up. This is almost basically the best of both worlds, right? It's a short-term lease. You're getting a premium, but you don't have to worry about really providing any, toilet paper, any toiletries, really anything of that nature. So there's a lot of benefit to that if you guys are thinking about doing that. So there's a lot of need for these, temporary housing, especially here in Texas. If you guys know what happened earlier this year with the Snowmageddon that they call it, there was a huge freeze and hundreds of people all over Texas had huge problems with old pipes busted, and those are some of the people that are needing temporary housing. And there's always going to be situations, right? We don't know if it's tornadoes, we don't know if it's just natural damage or, an accident, right? Whether it's a fire damage. So that's exactly what was going on with this particular property. So we were really happy with that property. And as we finished renovating that property, the neighbor walks across the street and says, hey, who's the owner of this property? And I was standing right there and I was able to say, I'm here, we're remodeling this property, how can I help you out? I thought he was going to complain about something, but he said, you know what? I'm actually thinking about selling my property across the street. I'm not sure if you would be interested. So of course, this is exactly what we look for. We walked over across the street, looked at the property, and this property was actually even in worse shape than the one that I had just bought. It was in heavy distress. The homeowner did not have any plumbing, right? Like his kitchen was routed out to like his backyard because the plumbing was backed out. So he created it was just horrible situation. No HVAC, no heater. Really the only thing he has is really electricity and really running water up until about 2 weeks prior to closing. 2 weeks prior to closing, he calls me and he says, hey, I wanted to let you know a pipe busted underneath the house. I turned off all the water, so I don't have water. So he didn't have any water for the last 2 weeks. But we were able to help him out and help him transition into a nice apartment. He obviously got his funds that he wanted for the property, and he was able to be in a better situation where he had running water, plumbing, and it was just, better off for him, right? His situation was that he had been in the home for, 30 plus years, and it was just in heavy distress. He never maintained it. His wife had passed away about a year ago. And the same thing, we said, hey, let's actually, since we kept the other one as a short-term rental, we're not sure what's going to happen. Let's go ahead and renovate this one to flip it. Fast forward, about 4 or 5 months later, as we're finishing the renovation on the second property, the neighbor right next to that property was going through a heavy renovation because I could see there was a bunch of dirt and plumbing getting done at that house. So one day that I show up, he's parked at my property that I'm finishing up, the second property in Irving, right? So I go over there and I pull up. He has his car parked in my driveway and he's like, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm the neighbor across the street. I can't park over there because there's a lot of, contractors parking their trailers and things of that nature. I said, not a problem. To make a long story short, he said, I'm going through a heavy renovation. I'm so frustrated. Me and my family have 2 hotel rooms down the street. I have grandkids and they're not having a good time. And I said, wow, you should have asked me a couple months ago. I would have, leased this property across the street because I did a short-term lease. So as I'm having the conversation, he suggests, why don't you do the short-term lease on your property? And I said, well, I hadn't thought about it. I said, have your insurance company reach out to me and there's something that I might consider. So I talked to the insurance company and I said in my mind, if I can lease this property for $3,400, I could probably almost double the lease amount on this property if I just furnish it. So we decided, me and my wife, let's try this out. Let's go ahead and furnish this property. And if we can get, around $6,000 a month, let's go ahead and do it. So what did we do? We started negotiating, talking with the insurance company, and we asked for $6,500 a month for rent. We ended up settling and negotiating at $6,100 on that property once it's furnished. So guess what we did? We furnished the property, moved them in. So now we're getting $6,100 a month for the second property. So between both properties, we're getting just under $10,000, right? $9,500, $3,400 for one house and $6,100 for the second house. And this process started, the first house we leased out, I believe it was in April. And now as I'm recording this video, it's December 2021. They're more than happy. They're still in the property. They thought they were gonna be out by October, November of this year. They just sent us an email about 2 weeks ago on both properties that they're gonna extend their lease at least till the end of January 2022. So I'm getting $9,500 a month on these two properties, right? And that's crazy to think that I'm doing this without Airbnb, right? Which most people think about. I don't have to worry about figuring out and making sure that, the sheets are washed, that they don't need any, toilet paper, anything, right? And that's the beauty of the short-term lease. When you're doing it through an insurance company, you're getting the best of both worlds. So we're really excited to share this with you guys. There's a lot of these companies out there that are looking for property. So if you're a homeowner, if you're a landlord, you may want to look into getting in contact with these companies and saying, hey, I have my property available and I'm open to doing a short-term lease, right? Because there's just so many benefits. And really all this was by accident. I didn't really know about this side of the business, and it just really fell in our lap, and it was by accident. And I wanted to share that with you guys because it's really powerful. So $9,500 a month on two properties. And how did we find it? Which platform did we use? And that's what we're going to get into. I'm going to show you guys the exact screenshots. You guys can see. This is some of the first conversations that we had. All right. So as you guys can see, this is Batch SMS. This is the platform that I mentioned that I used to get the two investment properties in Irving. So this is how the conversation started. As you can see, just a pretty simple text. She got my letter regarding that particular property. Who is this? And you can see, hey, this is Omar. I was just reaching out to see if you would be open to an offer. She said $400,000. I was like, for a mobile home, and acreage that goes back, but I don't want to sell. I just wanted to keep the conversation going, and fairly quickly, she said, I have a house in Irving on 3/4 of an acre. I'll take $180,000 for it. Needs some work, but but it's every bit worth it. My starting price on it is $200,000. She understands that she's asking too much for a property, so we kept on going. As you guys can see, she said no. She wanted $200,000. She won't take anything less than $180,000. So obviously, $180,000 is her starting price, and she started describing the property. She sent me the address. I asked for the address. You can see the address. And I started asking them a couple more questions. She said that Pat, her husband, is going to be reaching out. And then we set up an appointment. And this is where we started negotiating. I made them an offer of $160,000. They wanted to be at $165,000. So I let them know that it really needed full renovation. It needs everything. Of course, everybody always thinks that their property just needs a couple of things, but the property needed full renovation, and $165,000 is what they were stuck at. And it took about a week or so to finally, as you guys can see, July 24th, and you guys can see that they don't want to take $160,000. They're stuck at $165,000. And finally, a couple days later, FYI, Pat and Mark just talked. They're going to take the offer of $165,000. Pat said he's going to call you tomorrow. And that is great news. And that was it. And then as you guys can see, just asking for a testimonial video. So what platform we use, which is Batch SMS text messages. We've made hundreds of thousands of dollars using this exact platform. So I'm gonna put a link if you guys wanna try it out to get a trial and seeing, you know, what kind of campaign you guys wanna run. You guys can also download a list from there. So we were just really targeting, I think, landlord or homeowners that had, you know, 50% or more equity. And we sent out the SMS campaign, and you just start able to have conversations immediately. You can send hundreds of text messages within minutes, right? Make sure that you talk to an attorney. There's obviously a lot of legal aspects that you may want to look into if you've never sent out SMS messages campaign. So if you guys are interested, make sure, you know, we're probably going to be doing a couple of separate videos showing you guys how the batch platform exactly works. The final thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is really the numbers, right? As far as a lot of you guys are watching this and may say, well, you know, how much are you really making after, you know, your mortgage, right? Because we do have a mortgage on this property. We got a loan. So on the first property, we're paying about $1,400 a month. What does that include? That includes our taxes, principal, and interest. So everything, right? And you guys are probably wondering, you know, when you have an Airbnb, guess who's paying for utilities? The landlord, the homeowner typically is paying for utilities, right? With internet, you know, electricity, gas, anything of that nature. With these short-term rentals, guess who's paying for all the utilities? The tenant. We're not paying anything. So $1,400 a month, we get to keep the rest. On the second property, our mortgage payment's about $1,200 a month, right? So between both properties, we're paying about $2,600 a month. That includes the mortgage, taxes, principal, and insurance, right? Between both properties, $2,600 a month. We're making a total of $9,500. $9,500 minus $2,600 a month, we're netting $6,900. Just around $7,000, just under $7,000 we're netting on these properties. So just imagine, I'm not sure what your expenses are, but just imagine on two properties, it's life-changing short-term rental, how it can pay really for your living expenses, $6,900 a month passively. I can tell you, these properties have been a big blessing to me and my family, and I'm excited for you guys to see the value and really learn about short-term rentals, and hopefully you guys can start looking at that when you're looking at a property that you may want to just have a second option and saying, maybe we don't want to just do a regular rental, we want to do a short-term rental. So I hope you guys have liked this video and brought a lot of value to you. If you have, please help me out and make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit the notification icon so you can see the next video that we're going to be posting on a weekly basis and sometimes maybe twice a week. So thank you guys and have a great day. See you on the next video.